everybody, my name is Sheila SL Reads, and today I'm going to be filming my February wrap-up and March TBR. I am so sorry that I have been so bad about posting videos recently. It's currently the middle of midterms, I've been having midterms for the past few weeks, and I had an essay due last week, and I just never really feel like editing videos. I have ones to edit, and I just can't get around to it. Part of it is because I keep filming really long videos, and then I have to get through an hour of footage, and that's a pretty big thing to do. So I definitely have to be better about that in the future. I'm going to try to, and part of how I'm going to do that is by making shorter videos. So hopefully this will not be too long, and we're just going to get right into it. So in February, I read 6 books. The first of these was Much Ado About Nothing by William Shakespeare. I really enjoyed this. I've never read this before, and I feel like this is one of the Shakespeare plays that everybody kind of knows, but I really did not know anything about it. I definitely recognize the names now that I have read it. Many of the people talked about Beatrice and Claudio, and I just never really knew what it was from, but this was a very enjoyable read. I have only read one Shakespeare comedy before, and that was A Midsummer Night's Dream, and I was not the biggest fan of that. Perhaps it was because I was in 8th grade when we read it, and I wasn't really a big fan of Shakespeare at the time. I don't think I was a big fan until I got to Macbeth. But it's pretty much just about a bunch of guys freaking out about female sexuality in Renaissance Europe, which is what a lot of Shakespeare's plays are about now that I'm actually in a Shakespeare class and talking about this all the time. It has some questionable elements, but it is very interesting, and I've talked about it in depth, so if anybody wants to talk about Shakespeare of any sort, please let me know in the comments down below. I love Shakespeare. The next book that I read was The Foxhole Court by Nora Sakovic. I am currently rereading this for the 2nd time, so it's my 3rd read through this. I always read this around Valentine's Day. The first time I ever read it was beginning of February, I think. And so I kind of try and do my reread like that every single year, and it's been kind of working so far, even though it's taking me longer this time because I'm in college and I'm just dealing with stuff. And I talk about this in a lot of my videos, but it is such a great concept. It involves the mob and sports, and it's just the weirdest combination of things that for some reason just works. And rereading it, I feel like I am just sucked into this world again. That is one of my favorite things about the series. It is my favorite series. I just always feel like I'm coming home when I pick these books up, and it's so cool to read this again after seeing so much fan content for so long that now I'm actually dealing with the canon, with what the book is actually about, and it's so amazing. The next book that I read was The Merchant of Venice by William Shakespeare. I did not like this at all. It's really racist and anti-Semitic, and it's just kind of gross all around. This is also a comedy, but it has this really weird middle bit where it's just really racist and anti-Semitic, and there's this whole trial that's all about logic versus mercy. It ends up with one of the characters, Portia, who has the most agency of any Shakespeare character. Definitely any woman, probably any character whatsoever, rigging the trial, making someone convert to Christianity, and it's just really bad. It's really interesting because it's split between Belmont, which is this magical, fantastic place, so there's this marriage thing going on, and then Venice, which is a very real setting that has very real consequences to everyone's actions. And I also did not know who the Merchant of Venice was for the longest time until we were on the last day of discussing this in class. Turns out it's Antonio, if anybody was curious. The next book that I read was Radio Silence by Alice Oseman. Alice Oseman is one of my new favorite authors. I read her book Solitaire, I think, at the end of December. I also really love her webcomic, which is called Heartstopper. This is really along the lines of her last novel. She writes contemporaries, but she writes very realistic contemporaries that involve lots of elements of social media. This one definitely deals with fandom culture and the relationship between a creator and its creation and the fandom around it. Because of that, it definitely reminded me of Eliza and Her Monsters by Francesca Zappia, which I read in January, I believe. Except this is kind of reversed because it is told from the perspective of someone in the fandom who is a fan artist. I definitely like this a little bit less than Alice Oseman's last novel, and I think it's because I was trying to be critical of reading this. Overall, it was a very easy read. There were moments in which I was oh god, this is really stressful, and there are these things happening to these characters and I don't want them to be, and that's kind of something that you have to deal with in a lot of books, but it's also, since it is so close to real life, definitely did have that difficult element where I was I can imagine these things happening to me. I'm definitely looking forward to her next novel, which is coming out in April, I believe. You should definitely check that out as well. It all follows characters within the same town. It's not a series, but it is just multiple books set at similar schools with characters who know each other. So there's minor characters in one of the books of the webcomic who become major characters in this book, and it's just very interesting, and I'm definitely excited to see where she goes with her other novels. The next book that I read was Hamlet by William Shakespeare. I read this once before, and I definitely liked this the second time way more than I liked it the first time. The first time, I definitely was just Hamlet's this really irritating character, and he is very overtly sexual and just a child the whole time, and it's just irritating. But now that I'm in this Shakespeare class, we're really going in depth to every single play, I definitely get to see a lot more of it, and there are things we talked about in my last class that I definitely like agree with that my professor now does not agree with. You really cannot say that anything about Shakespeare is set in stone. Also, fun fact, in The Merchant of Venice, there's a apparently homoerotic relationship, which is between Antonio and Bassanio, and so I proposed that Hamlet and Horatio were together in this play, and my professor said no, and so I wrote a very long research paper in which I used a plethora of evidence from this play and also from outside sources. So, just as a fun fact, they were gay. And then the last book that I read in the month of February was Pet by C.S. Passat. I still don't know how to say her name. Should really watch an interview to figure this out. This is the 4th novella short story within the Captive Prince universe. It kind of coincides with the first book in Captive Prince because there is like a scene that is in Captive Prince from one character's perspective and this one is from a different character's perspective. It's not my favorite one of the novellas, and I honestly forgot who the character was. Like, I read the synopsis and I was like, who the hell is Ansel? I had no clue. But one of my friends just started reading Captive Prince, so I was just like googling it, and then I stumbled across this and I was like, well crap, I have to read it now. And I did enjoy it, but it definitely was not my favorite one. So now we're into the March TBR portion of the video. I have already read like a number of books. A lot of them have been like really short, or I read like 4 books that were just all like 20-page graphic novels, and so they're in here, but I'm just gonna glance over those really quick and I'll come back to them at the end of the month. The first of those is Opal by Maggie Stiefvater, which is a novella following a minor character within the Raven Cycle series. This character is introduced, I believe, in the 4th book in the series, so if you don't know who it is and you're reading it right now, you're gonna find out eventually. The 4 graphic novels that I read were Fence, which is also by C.S. Passat. I keep seeing this fencing comic and I have no idea why it's getting recommended for me every single time I finish one of these novellas, and then I realized it was by the same author. So I read 4 of them. I think the 5th one is coming out later this month, so hopefully I'll get to that. I also finished The Raven King, which is the 2nd book in the All for the Game series. A few days ago, I finally finished Pride and Prejudice. I listened to the ebook because I was having so many issues with like actually reading it for like years. Like, I've been reading this for like 3 years. If you look in Goodreads, it's like a ridiculous amount of time. But I finally finished it and it was great. And then I watched the movie last night, so I'm just having a great time. So now these are books that I have not read yet. And the first of those is Measure for Measure by William Shakespeare. This is another comedy. I don't really know anything about it, but one of my friends in my Shakespeare class says that she doesn't like it so far, so I'm kind of nervous that it's not going to be fun. So yeah, it's like 136 pages, so that's not that short, but it could be longer. It could be like Hamlet, which is like 4,000 lines. The next book that I hope to read is Edward II by Christopher Marlowe. This is another play. I'm very into plays at the moment because I was doing research for my Shakespeare paper. Marlowe is one of Shakespeare's contemporaries, and I was like using parts of this. I had found a PDF online and I was using parts of this to compare the different texts and like the queer elements within them. I was so interested in this because I had like researched it slightly. I was like, I've never read anything by Marlowe. I've heard so much about Marlowe. I just want to finally read something. And also this is like a beautiful edition. Like, it's very aesthetically pleasing and I really like it, and I'm very excited that it's here. It's also not long, so I hope it's not going to be that awful. I'm trying to figure out if I want to annotate this or not because it's so pretty, but it's also like not a school book, but it also is like kind of, because it's like a play. I don't know. Next, I'm hoping to read Othello by William Shakespeare. I know this is a tragedy. I've seen comparisons between the character of Hamlet and the character of Othello, and I don't really know a lot about him, so I'm definitely excited to read this because this is a well-known one. It was really concerning. He's like choking a lady, maybe his wife. Do you see that? Like, the next book that I'm hoping to finish in March is The King's Men by Nora Sakavic. This is the 3rd book and the final book in the All for the Game trilogy. I am currently reading this. I'm like 135 pages through, which is like here. There's so much more to go. I've already read this, like I said. This is my favorite book in the series, and so I'm simultaneously like trying to read it fast and trying to read it slow at the same time because I'm like, I don't want it to be done, but at the same time, like, I can't wait to get through the good parts. It's a really big struggle at the moment. The final book that I'm hoping to finish in March is The Great Passage by Cheyenne Miura. Christine from Turning Pages 52 recommended this to me, and then I believe Catherine from The Literary Prince read it because she was also recommended it, so I'm just trying to finish it. I believe this is like about people who make dictionaries. I am a linguistics major, so I really like words and stuff like that, and so that's part of the reason that I was so intrigued by this, but I hope it's going to be good. Also, this also has a fantastic cover. I don't know if you can see it. There's like words in the waves. Like The Great Passage is the name of the dictionary that they're making. So that is the end of my February wrap-up and March TBR. I hope you enjoyed this. Please let me know what books you read in February or what books you are going to be reading in March. Sorry that this is going up late. It's probably like the middle of March by the time you're seeing this, so I apologize for that. And in case you didn't know, I post all of like my social media links down below, including like Goodreads and Twitter, and so if you want to like find me on any of those and be friends, talk to me. I love talking about books and other things. And please feel free to look at those. I'm trying to put out videos every week, I promise. I know I say this in every video, and it's like I never actually do it, but I'm trying very hard. So hopefully we'll get there one day. And if you want to see more from me, then please subscribe and give this video a thumbs up, and I will see you next time.